I said something a little witty, as I'm apt to do from time to time.
You are. You're hilarious.
So he laughed, I laughed, and the next thing we heard was "Budumts."
No. No, 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 no. Well, hello.
Well, hello. How are you?
I'm all right, my love. How are you?
I'm good. What's new in your world?
What's new in my world? What's new in my world? I was partying for a 50th birthday celebration over the weekend. And can I just say, I'm too old to stay out overnight unplanned. You know, I, I crashed over. I had a really busy day and I was out for this 50th birthday lunch and then in central London, and it was Pride, so it was heaving, really,
Oh,
really busy. And then I had to get from Mayfair to Hackney for a theatre production. And then from
okay.
Hackney, I was staying in North London. And I thought, I'm too old for this. And it's because the day was looking so long, getting back just seemed too much of a bind. So I crashed over
Yeah.
with friends. But in the morning, it looks like I'm doing some kind of walk of shame because
Oh, well,
I mean, I'm all dressed up and I had to put the same clothes back on.
right. That's what I was going to say. At least there wasn't a walk of shame as such. So, we're
Oh,
never too old for those.
never too old for the walk of shame. But it wasn't a walk of shame, just for the record. But it was
Oh,
great. It was lovely catching up with friends. And it's nice. I like doing that back and forth. I like it. It's really enjoyable. And, in summer, everyone wants to go out and meet up. So it's been pretty busy for that. And I've got a busy week coming up. But other than that, all good. What about you?
that's awesome. Yeah, I've just been kind of in this whole World Cup situation. I don't know if you've been keeping track, but the Mexico-England game was fantastic.
Didn't know you were a footy fan. I've known you all these decades.
Once every 4 years, yeah, I get
Okay,
into,
okay, you're
yeah,
World Cup. Right.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. It was
Was
an
it good?
amazing,
It passed me by.
it was an amazing game. Absolutely amazing. Yeah. So we're hoping for a England-Colombia final. That's what we're hoping for here.
Here's a
Uh,
very important question, Morgan. Who are you going to be supporting?
it's got to be England, of course.
Thank you very much. Okay, we can continue. I was going to cut you off if you said it was going to be Colombia. I was like, that's it. We're through. We're done.
And well, I mean, my thought was it would be so funny if the final ended up being the US and Mexico kicked their butts. That
Oh,
would have been hilarious.
that
But
would have.
they're both out now, so England and Colombia are still in the running.
Well, I'm gonna have to sort of check it. I'll watch the quarterfinals. I haven't been interested up until this point, really. So I think we're playing Norway, and
Correct. On
yeah,
Friday. I think.
but I mean, it feels like anything is possible, right? Because Brazil is out. How the hell did that
Yeah,
happen?
exactly. Exactly. Well, that's the
So
thing. In Argentina, Brazil, Mexico, these teams are not what they used to be. I have kind of a little bit of a technology question. So
for
I'm
me,
curious. Yeah, for you and for our listeners. Yeah. So I'm a little bit I think concerned would be the sentiment right now. So and for anybody out there who has meta glasses, this
Mm,
is a question for you. So I was having a conversation with a friend of mine the other day on the phone, and he mentioned partway through the conversation that he was talking on his meta glasses. So we're having a conversation. Midway through, I said something a little witty, as I'm apt to do from time to time.
you are. You're hilarious.
So he laughed, I laughed, and the next thing we heard was Ba-dum-ts.
No, 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 no.
And so we both stopped mid laugh and we said, "Did you hear that?" And he said, "Yeah, did you hear that?" I was like, "Yeah, what the hell did that come from?" So my question is this a thing? Is this what meta glasses do? They kind of monitor your conversation and wait for the punchline and then ba-dum-ts. I,
Wow, that's
I'm a little
terrible.
confused.
I'm guessing it must do. I mean, one, why has he got meta glasses anyway? I think they're outrageous.
Yeah,
Um, and uh, there's a lot of reports in the press over here about them being used um, subversively, and that it puts women and children at risk for for some of the population that are buying them for more negative reasons. Um,
right.
but I mean, for ages we talk about how our tech's listening to us. You know, you talk about something and then suddenly you start seeing the ads and social media, and it'd be something that might be completely off topic for you. You know, you're talking about buying rat poison. I don't know. And then suddenly you start seeing ads. You're thinking, that's weird. So I guess it makes sense that it's also, but I mean, it's cognizant listening, isn't
In
it?
real, that's how it
It's,
felt. I mean,
yeah, like
it
it was
was
sitting and listening as if it was participating in your conversation.
it was literally it was a sound effect. I don't know where it came from. I was speaking on my phone. He was speaking with his meta glasses, and then literally made a little crack. We both laughed, and
Yeah.
and it was
I don't know.
perfectly timed. It was just the most bizarre thing that's happened to me on a telephone
Didn't that
call.
creep you out? I would have freaked out. I would have said, hang up
Yes,
immediately.
yes, we ended the call very abruptly.
But then the question is, because I think we can assume it's set up to do that. Can you switch it off? And does
Well,
it switch it off
that
really?
that's my question. Like, is this a thing? And I've Googled it. I've even gone to Google,
Of
and
course.
I'm like,
When in doubt, Google.
Meta glasses, do they have sound effects during phone calls and stuff? But I can find nothing online. So this is a question for any listeners out there who have meta glasses.
Yeah.
Please let us know. Is this a thing?
It's not a thing for me. I don't know. Would you be a meta glasses kind of person?
No,
I didn't think
absolutely
you
not.
would be. I think you'd probably be fascinated by the tech, but not interested in. I mean, I don't know. Is this what I was going to say? I wonder if this is a good segue into what we're talking about. It's about an age thing. If we were to look at the populace, the population, the number of people or the generations that are opting for meta glasses, is it down the younger end of the scale or, you know,
Well,
that's Gen X and above going, no, 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 because,
the
you know,
well, the friend I was talking to, he is our generation, so
right.
it's quite interesting. And I mean, again, though, it does come back to, me and I think our generation are quite into tech and are willing to try stuff.
Um,
Uh,
yeah, we were there for the boom, weren't we? So, you know, well, I think we were perfect guinea pigs for the
Absolutely.
market when it was all coming out, and we bought into it because how cool when you grew up with Buck Rogers. And I don't know why that came to me. I could have chosen a million things, but Buck Rogers is what came to
Same.
mind. What was his name? The little robot?
Yes.
Anyway, I digress. But I wonder if this felt like our childhood dreams coming true because tech was moving in a direction that felt futuristic. And so we bought into it. So we have been avid tech enthusiasts, I suppose. But actually, maybe that is a midlife crisis hanging on to. I don't
Yeah.
know. Is that a midlife crisis? Buying all the latest, coolest tech? Do we need it?
I
Is there a
don't think so, but I think where it comes from is, as you say, um, we were in our formative years during the introduction of tech.
yeah.
So we were the ones who would go out there. We would be, the owners of the newest computers, and we would buy a computer, and there would be a manual this thick that would come with it that we'd have to read in order to operate the computer. So
Fine.
we were there during the evolution of tech, as it were. So I think it's kind of natural for us to when new tech is introduced, that we're there on the forefront to
Yeah.
try and
Yeah.
try it out. Because
Yeah.
bear in mind also what this did for us is it helped in the formation of our amygdala.
Yeah.
So our amygdala was formed in two ways. One, from being the generation that we are, and we were like the latchkey kids. We would
Yeah.
come home, empty house, prepare our own food. If there were problems, we would have to deal with them ourselves. And then we were at the forefront of the technology age, if you
Yeah.
like. We were the ones developing and learning this as it was coming in.
Yes.
And so we had two levels of amygdala development that kind of shaped who we are as a generation. And what's quite funny is that it has been reported that our generation will never happen again
Oh.
because we were in such a unique position where the age in man that we were born at
Hmm.
the development of these technologies that our generation will never occur again.
But
And
there'd be, I guess, a new revolution, wouldn't there? So, you have the industrial age and, so on, and then you've got the technology age. Is it the AI age? That's the new thing.
I wonder if it would be the AI age. I don't necessarily think so, though. I think it may be more along the lines of travel. I think it would probably be the space travel age. Once we're out there, we're discovering, new places to live and, new places to travel to. I think that may be the next
Yeah.
kind of big age because for me, AI is still part of the,
Part of technology.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think it would be either a space travel age or probably a robotic age where we become a bit like, the movie I, Robot,
Yeah. Yeah. We all have
and
robots.
perhaps
But
got
we're not far from that. If you see some of the robots that China have rolled out, and they don't look dissimilar to those robots, do they?
exact.
And they're capable of doing all sorts, including martial arts. I don't know if these reels are AI. Is this where we've come to, where you have to qualify saying you've seen something, you're not sure if it's AI or not?
Right.
And they are phenomenal. And there's a place in Cornwall, um, and I need to follow up with, but I can't remember the name of them, but they've developed this humanoid, and if that's the right term, and the facial expressions are incredible. Absolutely incredible. She can frown, she can look surprised, she can be angry, she can be really happy, sad, upset, and it's all mimicked. And then, the hand movements are being finessed as the days and weeks go by, and
Yeah.
it's so smooth. It's so smooth. So I don't
Yeah.
think it's going to be long before they are going to be very human looking because they'll find some kind of latex skin-like material, and they'll be able to create that is completely robot underneath. I mean, I don't know. We'll
Yeah.
start
But
dating them before long.
I mean, I do think that the soul comes into it quite a lot though, because I do feel like there are some, amazing advances in robotics, like you say, and
Mm.
especially in humanoid robotics or cybernetics or whatever you want to call it. But I still feel you can still catch it. It's much the same with AI and AI videos and photos. You can still kind of catch it because there is still somewhat of an uncanny valley there.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereby it may be a delay in an expression or it may be an expression that's slightly off,
Off,
but you
yes. Time
still
is, yeah.
is something that you feel, I think right
Yeah.
now.
Yeah,
Uh,
and I mean, that's something they've said, it's the emotional intelligence that's missing, but then can you train it? Can you program it to understand emotional intelligence so that it mimics it? So it may not be able to emulate it in a real way, but
mhm.
once it understands what emotional intelligence is, and it knows then what's appropriate in terms of how you would respond in a situation, then I think it's not impossible that it'll get to a point where it's very realistic, but it's not real is what we'll have to remember, you know? It
Yeah,
isn't truly empathizing with you. It's learned what empathy is, and therefore it's playing it out in the right situations.
right. Which for me is why I feel personally that kind of the most, I guess, realistic depiction that I've seen of cybernetics would be something like the androids that are in the Alien movies.
Okay, I've not seen the Alien.
Okay, whereby they kind of look they look very human and they understand these reactions, but they're not quite able to pull them off themselves, you know?
Yes, yeah, yeah. Constantly having to, what would they be like? Constantly having to rewrite, course correct is the term I'm looking for. It's
Yes,
having to course correct each time.
yeah.
So it would probably have to. It would probably have to take, I don't know, however many scenarios for it to bed
Hmm.
in. I don't know. I mean, we should actually do a whole conversation on this because it's really interesting.
Yeah.
Because I was fascinated by, is it Westworld? Is that what it's called?
Yes. Uh-huh.
That is just phenomenal. Absolutely phenomenal, but really dark because they create that world, don't they, for humans to go in and do whatever they want. There are no laws, no governance, but bit by bit, the robots are remembering, and it's because they're not wholly robot. They are still partially human. I think
Yeah.
Elon Musk was that in for us.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's much like, and I'm sorry, we will move on in a second, but
No, but
I,
it's fascinating.
I think it's much like I don't know if I had spoken with you about that experiment that was run with the AIs, the different AI models. So you had Claude and ChatGPT and Grok,
Mm,
and what they did was they created towns, each one run by the different AI model.
yeah.
And then they had one town that was a mixture of all of the AI models. And all of the towns failed except for the Claude town, Claude AI model
Mhm.
town. And
Right.
what happened was that the AI law enforcement in each of the ones that failed ended up taking over the towns and effectively burning them to the ground. The model where there were all four, it was the fifth town where there were all four models running the town, or the inhabitants of the town, ended up self-immolating, um, committing suicide. It was it was the unhappiest of the towns.
Oh, well. Wow.
It's very interesting.
And terrifying, actually.
Yeah, yeah.
Really. Do you think we'll see it in our lifetime?
I think so. I mean, if you think about the advancement of technology, from in even in the last 40 years since we were kids, it's come such a long way in such a short space of time.
Yeah, yeah. The
Um,
escalation has been super quick.
yeah, we've gone from IBM, BBC computers with the green, you know, icons or whatever, and now we've got an iPhone in our pocket. And we've got AI that can,
And it's
you know.
so powerful. Everything. Yeah. Wow. Oh my God.
Well, hello. Thinking about starting a podcast, or maybe you've already got one, but you're looking for an easier way to record and edit. That's exactly why we use Riverside. Considering my co-host Sass is in London and I'm in New York, having a reliable remote recording platform isn't really optional. It's essential. It gives you studio quality audio and video without needing a studio. So whether you're recording solo or with guests on the other side of the world, everything sounds and looks fantastic. You can edit your episodes with simple built-in tools, use AI features to speed up the workflow, and publish your podcast all from one platform. You can even host webinars with up to 10,000 registrants. The best part, you can try Riverside free for 14 days, so there's nothing to lose. And if you decide it's right for you, plans start at just $24 a month. Head to riverside.sjv.io/hello20 to get 20% off an annual plan. That's riverside.sjv.io/hello20. And if you sign up using our link, you'll be supporting the show too. So thank you. We really appreciate it. So I guess that leads us into, I mean, if you think about when we were in school, we were 13 years old in the computer lab, which was a porta cabin at school, with those clunky and the floppy disks and,
It was, it
13
was
to
such an
23.
amazing place to be. We loved it.
And I mean, it was an exciting time, and it would kind of feed into our thoughts of where would we be when we're 50, when we're our parents' age? Where would we be at that stage of life? What would we be doing? Are we going to be
Mm.
on hoverboards like Back to the Future? And, are they going to be flying cars? And so, I mean, I don't know. Were we certain then? Did we feel certain?
I don't think I felt certain at that age, as young as 13. No, I think at 13, I was probably still very firmly in the camp of thinking I would get married and have children, and just thinking of that very traditional arc. That,
Okay.
my thoughts around what I would be like in my 50s would change, I think, periodically over time, and that's only natural. But at 13, I think I was probably still romanticizing life and thinking, oh, well, the other thing I thought I would be doing was running a fashion business with my friend at school.
Oh,
We
wow.
designed this whole, what we wanted to own was a department store where we sourced clothes, which I think is quite cool when you think about it.
Yeah.
There's a shout out to Salima, by the way. That was who, so that's who it was. And we had a name. We used to draw up logos, but our interest was actually in owning a department store as opposed to designing our own lines.
Okay.
And so and they were, at that age, I think you do dream big. And there's the traditional stuff because I think society molds us in a certain way until you start developing your own thoughts, feelings, opinions, etc. So, if you were to ask me at 13, at 50, I'd probably say I'd probably be a grandmother by then. you know, and thinking in a very traditional way, but then on the other pathway, we were dreaming up having an international business, and we were going to be incredibly successful. We'd be flying around the world and living in New York.
Right.
I
Right.
remember that distinctly, and we were about that at that age. So I think
Wow.
it was probably very typical to have big dreams because we were being influenced by Whitney Houston and Madonna, and there were really incredible women out at that time, even on TV shows, which I know we're going to do an upcoming episode on, the influence TV shows had on us. But, there were women out there doing their things. Whilst we were thinking, oh, we're going to do the traditional thing, we were also thinking, no, we're going to build empires and
Right.
we're going to be really big. And it was great, such a happy feeling having those
Wow.
sort of brainstorming. We'd spend whole lunch hours over it talking about it.
That's fascinating. And what about when you kind of hit your 20, that, it's kind of, you're just coming out of college or university and
Yeah, I think your 20s is such a self-defining decade, and I've always described it as each year is different from the last. It's like going through a revolving door, and one revolution is a year, and you come out, and it's a totally different landscape. And in your 20s, I think you're so busy trying to carve out who you are that you almost miss the whole process and the joy of just being in your 20s because you're changing so rapidly. And in my 20s, I think I was busy trying to fit in where I was in that period. I married young, divorced in my early 30s, but met my now ex-husband in when how old was I? I can't even remember. But we married when I was about 25, 26. And, my focus in my 20s then was socializing with friends. I wasn't actually particularly interested in carving out a big career. I was working in media. I loved it. I was just meandering, but doing well and kind of moving up periodically and focusing on that relationship, which defined that whole decade for me, really. So again, I probably still had a similar thought process around in my 50s, you'd be older and settled, and maybe we'd be living in the countryside with horses and dogs. And I think when I started to carve out Sass and who she is today, that started after getting divorced in my early 30s. So I think that's when I started to think, okay, I've recognized myself more so. I have more in common with myself from my mid-30s onwards. And always, it's not that I haven't changed, of course I have, but I'm seeing more of who I am today. She started to blossom and you know, make an appearance in my mid to late 30s. Call me a late bloomer, if you will. How about
But
you?
well, I feel generally that's kind of the path that most of us in our generation take. Um, I mean, going back to being 13, I think at that time I had it set in my mind I wanted to be a doctor. That's what was in my mind at that time. This was the time I was excelling at school. I don't know if you remember, what's her name? Miss Alban was our form tutor, right? Miss Hayes. She
Miss
became when she
Harris, yes.
and I don't know, she saw something in me, so she would take me to the university in Russell Square, and I'd have to go there and do college level math.
Oh my God.
Um, yeah, she gave me this huge textbook
Mm,
one time. It was that I had to work out of with all of these equations and stuff. Don't ask me now how to do any of it, but so at that time, you know, in my mind, it was like, okay, this is kind of where I want to go. I
mm,
want to be a doctor. You know, then my teenage years hit in full stride, and it was like, okay, forget all of that. I want to have fun. I want
yeah,
to be out there. I want to party. Uh,
yeah.
so then by the time I hit like my early 20s, for me, it was more about, okay, I need to settle into something now. Um, I never really had, as you did, anything in my mind of, you know, having a traditional family type
Mm,
situation. It was just more about where in the world can I go? That was kind of at the forefront of my mind. Um, I always knew at some point I wouldn't be in the UK anymore. Um, and I think that's what led me to, you know, creating opportunities where I was able to. I went to
mm,
Paris to work. I was working in London. I
yeah.
was doing work out of New York. You know, it was just a case of I need to go somewhere. I need to do something. Um, and then I think you get to the stage that we're at now, where you've had so much experience and you've kind of gone through so much that you start to have this burgeoning of ideas and you've seen so much along your journey so far that you're at a point where you're able to kind of make a decision and think, I kind of want to try something new.
Yeah.
What is that going to be? How do you feel about that? I know you're one to you have many ideas and
I have so many ideas, but and I think, I mean, it does make me wonder if people, when we get to this age, when you're in your 50s and you're starting new things, and I've got older as I've grown older, and it's not that I didn't have those ideas before. I just don't know if I felt I had the confidence to really go for it. So, when you have these new ideas and you start playing them out at this age, people do call it a midlife crisis, but is it that? Is it a midlife crisis for people our age, or is that a westernized concept that,
I think it's a concept that kind of spilled over from our previous generation, the boomer generation, because there was a definite curve.
yeah.
You know, people are generally happy until their late 20s, then it begins to decline. Then you hit midlife around the late 40s, early 50s, and then there's a slow progression up
Oh,
into old age of
yeah.
happiness.
Yeah. Yeah.
Um, but it has been found, I mean, scientifically, it was studied, and it has been found that for our generation, Generation X, there is no U shape.
Why is that? Because I'm guessing the U shape for the boomer generation was because they would have come out of education, gone straight into a job that they kept probably almost until retirement. So they left with the traditional golden carriage clock. But that dip would have been working, young children, raising a family, saving so kids can go to university, and it's just a constant loop. Whereas, have we had the luxury of a bit more freedom to decide what we're going to do? And when,
Yeah.
because
Well,
by the time I came into my 20s, that dream of having children was gone. I wasn't in, by the time I was getting married, that wasn't something I wanted. And I don't know that our parents' generation had that luxury. And if women were thinking, I don't want children, I want to focus on a career, I don't know that they really felt that they could stand up and say that. Whereas, I had the luxury of getting married and not committing to having children and getting divorced and striking out on my own. And I wonder if we've just had a bit more at our disposal.
yeah, well, I think it kind of comes in on two levels in that um, our parents' generation, if you think about it, they had it a lot harder than we did in the
Yeah.
respect of if you think about women's rights, even the women's right to vote, even the woman's right to have a credit card. I
Yeah.
mean, women
Bank
couldn't even get a
accounts, they
credit
can make
card in them.
mortgages. Yeah. Yeah.
So there was a lot less autonomy that women perhaps felt during
Mm,
that period. And so their only real route, they were not able to necessarily forge forward and have successful careers as such. Kind of
mm,
their path was family, finding a husband who has a stable income, is
yes.
secure, having a family and raising children. Our generation came in and we, what happened was when we were growing up, we saw the systems failing.
Yeah.
As we were growing up, once we hit our teen years, is when the divorce rate peaks. It's when institutions crumbled. I mean, at that time, we had the 1980s recession, we had the miners' strikes, we
Yeah.
had pension plans that were crumbling to dust. Companies were being bought out and split up, and people were
Mm,
losing their livelihoods, losing their careers. So if you couple that with the fact that, as we've spoken about before, we were latchkey kids. So
yeah.
as children, we were seeing all of this going on, all of these institutions crumbling. We're arriving home from school. Mum and dad are out at work to put food on the table. So we're arriving home to an empty house. We're preparing our own dinner. We're alone. If there's an issue, well, there's nobody here to help. We've got to
Yeah.
deal with it.
Sort it yourselves. Yeah.
Got to sort it
Yeah.
out.
Well, and I think that's something that's prevalent amongst Gen X, isn't it? We are sort of a bit lone wolf.
Yeah. And so we found other ways to deal with stress. We found other ways to deal with problems. A lot of it may seem as though we don't actually deal with them. We kind of internalize them and we choose a different way to deal with them. And that could be that we're the tinkerer generation,
Yeah.
we'll take
I
some.
I think we do that to an extent where we'll internalize because, we were brought up by a generation of stiff upper lip, keep calm and carry on. And I think we carried that some of that with us, didn't we? Because like
Absolutely.
you say, with being latchkey kids, when you're at home alone, you've got no one to solve the problem. So you've got to do it yourself. Um, and there's no one to sort of, it's not that there was no one to come to your aid, of course, but you were in that moment on your own, raising yourself for a few hours every evening
Yeah.
before, it was full house again.
Yeah. And it sounds grim. It's not grim at all. And it's not to mean that this was a terrible way to be raised, but it helped us to become self-sufficient. So basically this curve, this U-bend, it requires that we arrive at midlife carrying a large amount of beliefs about what our life was going to be.
Mm,
But our generation, we didn't have those beliefs because
yeah.
we saw our parents go through it. They, had the belief of a long career and then retirement at 55 or 60 and the carriage clock, as you say, and that kind of stuff. Um, but we didn't have those beliefs. So whereas our parents, we saw the institutions crumble and their beliefs were shattered because their careers were ended. We saw that. And so we didn't carry those beliefs with us through on our journey.
Yeah. Yeah. So what you're saying is that we realized that there was no defined set sort of wrap up to the end of our working careers as we hit midlife. And I wonder if that also led us to thinking, well, maybe our careers don't end in midlife. We don't. Well, I mean, the retirement age is up. I don't know what it is in the US, but I think it's 67 here now or 68.
Yeah. It's,
And
yes.
I wonder if as we reach midlife, that's why maybe more and more of us are sort of tapping into that entrepreneurial side. So rather than it being a crisis, we're actually just trying to be resourceful and so resourceful, creative, falling back into something that we really want to do because we've got the lived experience, we can put that into that, but also recognizing that we might have to work longer. And if you're going to do that, why not take the leap and build something that, could be sustainable as we move past retirement age and potentially still working. I think
Absolutely.
a lot of us are building portfolio careers, aren't we? No one has. I know so few people who have a 9 to 5, Monday to Friday. There's a side hustle. There's alongside my change and culture engagement, and I'm writing a book, and I'm doing all these other things. And I know so many people in exactly the same boat. But is that necessity, or are we doing? Is it necessity? Is it a midlife crisis, or are we just really doing what we want to do?
It's it's basically because of what we saw, and we saw, as I say, these institutions failing, that the future became something that we prepared for rather
Mm,
than expected to be handed to us.
yeah, yeah. Even if
You
we
know,
wittingly, like on a subconscious level, we were
absolutely.
prepared in a certain way. Yeah, yeah. No, I totally get that. I totally
So
get.
as a generation, because of that, we're more prepared for when things do fail.
Mm,
We always have a way to, we don't necessarily have a plan, but we have the ability to fix the situation,
mm, mm,
whether that's physically by, as I say, tinkering with stuff, or actually thinking our way out of a situation and
yeah,
into a new situation.
yeah.
We're not reliant upon the same kind of routes and track that has gone before. This apparently is actually, rather than it being learned behavior, is actually our nervous system response, which is very interesting. Um, it's if you think about it, it's almost like a wobbly ladder. It's like a ladder
Mhm.
you're trying to climb, but it's wobbling.
Yeah, yeah,
So we would say we don't trust the ladder, but it being wobbly is not the end of the world.
yeah.
We'll fix.
We can prop it up.
We can put something underneath it and stop it
Yeah.
from wobbling, and
So we
that's what
didn't
we.
really choose. I suppose when you get to midlife, by the time, there's so much that impacts us when we get to this point that none of us really choose not the position we're in personally, but as a generation, because we're impacted politically, economically, all of that has an impact on where we're going to be in midlife today, doesn't it? So, but what do we get to choose in midlife, do you think?
Hey Sass, do you remember when learning something new meant trekking to the library, borrowing a book, or buying one of those massive for dummies guides?
Or recording a documentary on VHS because you might want to watch it again one day.
Exactly. Well, thankfully, it's a bit easier now.
Much easier. Enter Masterclass.
For as little as $10 a month, you get access to more than 200 classes taught by people who are actually the best at what they do. Whether you want to improve your cooking, learn photography, become a better leader, or try your hand at writing, it's all there.
And no one's handing out homework or making you sit in those awful plastic school chairs.
Each class is broken into around 20 lessons, and they're only about 10 minutes each, so you can watch one while your tea's brewing.
Or while waiting for Windows to update.
You can watch on your phone, tablet, or TV, download select lessons to watch offline, get the members only newsletter, and join a community of people who actually enjoy learning.
It's basically what we'd have wished for back when we were making mixtapes, renting videos at Blockbuster, and hoping the encyclopedia had the answer.
If you're a fellow Gen Xer who's still curious, and let's face it, we always have been, give Masterclass a try. Plans start at just $10 a month.
Go to masterclass.com. You'll find the link in our show notes. Unlike programming the VCR, this is actually easy. When you sign up, please tell them you heard about them here. It really helps to support our show.
I think that we get to choose whatever the heck we want to choose.
Yeah, look at you.
I mean, we're at the point, I think we've discussed before, where we're at the stage where the kids are grown. If you have kids, they've left the house. You're kind of empty nesting.
Mm.
You've spent the last 25 to 30 years in a career, perhaps, where you kind of been going through the motions. Because our nervous systems are so regulated, it often means that we are the people who are in leadership positions in
Mm.
these corporate environments. But we're at the point where, and it's not that we're not happy, it's that we want joy,
Yeah, I like that.
and even though we are a beast that likes routine as a generation, that's one of the things that's ingrained in us is a routine. Routine is comfortable to us, but we're at the point now where we want something that's going to bring that joy into our life
Yeah.
and fulfill us.
I think that's where I'm at. So, we've talked about me being a little bit of a magpie and will chase after a shiny object. But now I'm a bit more discerning about what that shiny object is, I
Yeah.
suppose. But I think you're right. I've got to a point where I realize that, as a fully fledged adult, which is really scary, but as a fully fledged adult, we're multifaceted human beings, and I can't find one thing and settle with it and be happy with it. I There are so many things that speak to me, so I have to be a little sort of structured in my approach. Otherwise, it will be a bit scattergun. But I've settled on three projects that feel really close to my heart, and funnily enough, they all sort of go back to what I initially studied in. I like you. I think we've talked about creativity, haven't we, before, and having creative backgrounds, and each of them are creative in its own unique way. And I love the day job, as I call it, the consultancy work. And I can see myself continuing to do that because I love being able to make a difference in where in the places that I go into. But tapping into that entrepreneurial side is really exciting. And I don't see it as a crisis. I really don't, because I know we've talked about, is it a midlife crisis? Is it a reinvention? But I don't even know. I'm not sure that it's either. For me, I think we're just evolving as human beings. If I stopped developing at a certain age, and that was me for the next 3 or 4 decades until I keel over, that's going to be a really miserable existence.
Yeah.
And I think as human beings, we set out, we're curious by nature, aren't we? And, we evolve as we grow and we evolve. And so I think we get to this point where we've got lived experience, we've got more confidence, we've got lots of knowledge that we can apply to these areas in our lives and we can pursue them. And they might fail, but I'm okay with that too. Because
Well,
who wants to get to a point where you're 95 thinking, "What if or if only?" I'd rather take that leap. I'd rather it fail, and I can say, "Well, I tried it." And there are so many things you'll learn from that that you can take on to the next project or piece of work that you do.
absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, our generation, particularly here in the US, so Generation X, we are the lowest percentage of the population,
Really?
our
Oh, I wonder
generation.
what happens for the UK. Yeah.
However, we have the highest number of leadership roles. And Gen Xers, we own almost 50% of all small business, which is the highest percentage. So we're
Yeah.
the smallest generation wise percentage, but we own the highest percentage of small business.
Yeah.
But because of the flexibility and the adaptability that we have, which is something that's so very important, and I think that's a big driver in our decisions to kind of go through this renewal in life,
Yeah.
and we don't hit that depth of unhappiness because we're flexible and adaptable.
Yeah.
We know when we're falling short, and so we
Yeah.
can continue on a trajectory to improve things
Mm,
because
mm.
we have that flexibility and that adaptability.
Do you think we can tell when we're having a crisis?
Yes,
Do you think we know when we're in crisis mode?
yes,
How
yes,
do
we
you
know
know we're in crisis mode?
because it is a generational thing. I find because I find it's not only myself; it is friends that are quite similar.
Mhm.
It could be I'm going through something, and I'll get quiet. I'll sit and I'll have a cocktail and I think I'll ruminate on it, and that's what you're doing is you're not falling into depression, you're not falling into despair, you're falling into, okay, I'm here. How do we
Yeah,
get out of it?
yeah. But that's that Gen X internalization, though.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
is that a good thing then?
It it is a good thing, I think, because we have that elasticity in our mind to be able to do that. Because if you think about it, the therapy generation came after us. You know, if you think from the early 90s onwards, with when it was all about, oh, let's see your therapist and let's
Yeah,
go to therapy. And, you
yeah.
know, it was the TV talk shows and the therapy
Mm,
talk shows and all that kind of stuff. Didn't really exist for us.
not really.
Um, so we had that
They were
ability. And
makeover shows for us. It was the makeover shows,
yeah,
not the total. I think it bled into that a little bit, didn't it? Because I do remember watching
yeah,
even Oprah and things, but they were still more talk show hosts as opposed to, you know, having your life aired on screen on Jerry Springer and
on Jerry Springer,
the
exactly.
but I think you're right with the internalization. I do a lot of the same thing, but we seem to be able to play our own devil's advocate um, rather well. But I I am a fan of kind of hitting up a good friend to talk it
Exactly.
out.
And that is part of the study as well. You know, they found that as opposed to having 2 and 3 hour conversations every day with somebody, you would hit somebody up once a week
Yeah, yeah,
and have a chat.
yeah.
Just knowing that somebody is there is
Mhm.
enough for us.
Yes.
As opposed, and we may not even address what it is that's going on. It may just be a chit chat and a gossip,
Like us. We do
like
it
we do,
every week. It is that
like we do.
human connection which makes a huge difference, doesn't it? And I don't know, my nieces, for example, I don't think they do this. I don't thi I think they may be more prone to seeing friends. They are still in that social age bracket where you're going out a lot and, catching up with friends. But I don't know that they might get on the phone and just, put the world to rights and ruminate. And I was doing that a lot at their age. But of course, technology was different. If we wanted to connect with our friends, it was either you meet in person or you got on the phone for a conversation. And depending on
Right.
where they were, it meant then it was a conversation. So, long chats into the night on the phone. And I've never known them to have that. Even as teenagers, I don't think, although they probably were using apps by that point. But I wonder if it has the same impact on the brain in terms of human connection.
Yeah, and apparently it doesn't. Apparently it is more isolating,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah,
having the technology that we didn't have. You
right.
know,
Yeah.
we kind of came of age just at the point where kind of AOL Messenger and MSN Messenger and all that kind of stuff was just taking off, and so by the time that came around, we didn't have that much use for it really
Mm, mm,
for social purposes.
yeah.
You know, we were already out there in the big bad world, kind of working and meeting people in person. But
No,
yeah,
I think we had a lot more independence, didn't we? Well, again, we had that from such a young age, didn't we? That independence.
yeah,
Whereas so many young people well into their 20s are still at home. And that would have been inconceivable to us, I think. I mean, culturally, it can change, right? In some cultures, it would be totally, perfectly normal as it would be in mine. Um, but for the best part, you couldn't imagine being at home in your 20s and not living with friends or a boyfriend or girlfriend or something.
yeah. I mean, another question I have is in regards to finances. Money, that used to be how we knew how well we were doing. Do you think
Yeah.
that's still the case? Um, do you feel it perhaps we measure how well we're doing in other ways now?
Yeah,
Um,
it's a really good question. I think money is always going to influence people. And I think to some point it's always on the radar. Whether it has the same meaning that it did when we were in our 20s, almost certainly not. It's probably still equally as important because, people our age are paying off mortgages or they're paying for their kids' universities and so it's important. But I think our relationship with it, I know I'm going to speak personally. So I'd say my relationship with money has changed. What I use it for and what I put it toward is a lot more grounded. And also, I'm of the opinion that everyone could do with more. That I think is probably just, unless you're in that sort of top percentile, everyone could do with more. But I think as I've grown older, I think I've worked really hard and I've put a roof over my head and I have my own property. I have a job that I like and that it puts food on the table. So my I can cover my basic needs and I can do more than that. But I don't feel the need to try and amass in the way that I did. It's not so much a social status symbol for me today as it would have been 25 years ago. And I think that comes back to me talking about your 20s being that self-defining decade. You're carving out who you are. You're trying to get your voice heard and your face seen and, be out there and network and be at the top of your game all the time. Every year you're carving out this new personality. And I think now in my 50s, I'm whilst I don't think my personality will change, but I'm always evolving as a person and my values are different now. My values are community, people I love, how are you, Morgan? Being with you and people with my family and my friends, taking care of my health. You know, we we're gonna have a fun episode on being dignities of the aging body, and God knows, you sneeze wrong and you caused yourself a hernia. So, you know, where I put my money today is very different. It's self care and taking care of myself and building a more
Yeah.
comfortable future.
Well, that is one thing that I would say, going back to, I'm sorry, your point about us internalizing everything.
Yeah.
What we have found too is that these these niggles that we have, these physical ailments, a lot of the time is because we're internalizing so much.
Yes. Yes, that's interesting. Yeah, I think you're right. And I think I can tell now when I've internalized too much
Mm.
how it plays out physically.
Yeah. I mean, I find when I am going through like maybe a little bit of a stressful period, it shows in my shoulder.
Mm, mm,
Where I get it is my shoulder or my lower back.
yeah.
But I have come to recognize it. And I do know that, okay, once I kind of dissipate that stress physically, I'm back to normal again. So,
S- Yeah.
yeah,
It
absolutely.
does start to balance out. And I think as we get older, we get to well, I don't know if this is for everyone or if it's just I find as I've grown older that I'm more in tune with myself physically. I can feel a lot more alignment and I know when something is off. And I also work to tune into my gut instinct because that's an actual thing as
Yeah,
well, which we know and scientists have found that the neurons in our guts are the same neurons that are in our brains. And the decision making process forms in our guts and it fires up the vagus nerve for the brain to interpret.
yeah,
So, that gut instinct's a very real thing. And I tune into that as much as I can
yeah,
because you get that butterfly feeling and I think I know something's off, and then I just need to do a bit of good old Gen X internalization, try and figure out what that message is.
yeah. Well, that is something I do agree with. I mean, I have been told by my doctors, more than one doctor, that I am very much in touch with my physicality, with
Mm.
what's going on in my body. So there have been times, and we'll get into it in a later episode when we do talk about health
Yeah,
and what it's been going through. But I have been told that some of the observations I have had about myself are unusual but
yeah,
correct.
right. Yeah,
So I may feel that, as you said, something's a little off, something's
yeah.
going on, but whereby it may be something that people wouldn't usually mention.
Mm.
I
Mhm.
will verbalize it. It will be
Yeah,
investigated, and I will
yeah.
be proven right.
And you'll
You
be
know?
right. Yeah, definitely trust it. So my grandmother used to say, "You are your own best doctor."
Yeah, yeah.
You've lived in these bodies for how long, Morgan?
20 odd years.
20
That's
odd
it.
years. Long enough to know, right? And so when our body's having a midlife crisis, we can tap into that. We understand and we know what we want to do then to help course correct, which is something I find
Right.
myself doing a lot of these days.
So I mean, the thing is, we know we do kind of know. It's not a midlife crisis per se,
Yeah.
as it's generally known. But we know when we're at a point where we want to make a change and we need to make a change and
Yeah.
we know we should.
Yeah.
What do you feel are some of the obstacles, or what do you feel that could be stopping you from taking that next step? Could you be averse to retraining? Could it be further formal education?
Mm.
Or can we just create our future success on vibes alone? I mean,
Yeah, I think to your point, we can do whatever we want to do, right? We're in that luxurious position of having options before us.
mm,
Um, and depending on, it sort of actually kind of links back to the money thing. Depending on what you do, if you want to retrain, it might involve a hell of a lot of cash. Or as an entrepreneur, if you're setting up a business, that also involves a lot of funding. So I think it's a case, I don't think there's anything that would put me off. I'm a bit like a dog with a bone. If I've got it in my head that I want to do something, I will find a way.
mhm.
So, there is always an answer. It might not be the most obvious one. And I think what's important is that you don't give up if it's something you know that you want to do. You want to study for um, a master's, but to do it full time is going to cost 30 odd grand up front or something. And you're thinking, right, how do I make that happen? There are avenues that you can take to make that happen. Also, I was speaking to a friend of mine on that subject, actually, saying, she said to me, if you do some of those continuous professional development courses with a university, those short 4 or 6 week courses here and there, and you build up, at some point they're likely to message you and offer you a place to do a higher study training with them because you've invested, you're building up a portfolio of work that you've done with them, and there'll be a pathway to that course without having to take the traditional one. I will always find a solution to something that I want to do. I'm quite stubborn like that. Um i th- i think we're prone to looking traditionally for solving a problem, but actually, if you're going down that entrepreneurial path, you've got to be creative. You've got to seek every, like I said, turn over every stone, go down paths that you wouldn't have gone down normally because the answer is there.
For me, I think that I think people's biggest stumbling block or obstacle, if you like, is fear.
Mm,
I think more than anything, it's just fear. And it could be fear from a practical standpoint, like you say, because you've got a full-time job, you've got a home to run, etc., etc. Um, and it could be somewhat the fear of failure. But I think with anything, I think we have so many tools at our disposal now to use, and tools, if you think about it, that we're able to use in a two-pronged manner. We're
yeah,
able to go and go to the library and research and use a microfiche, but also we're able to use AI and use
yeah,
those tools that are
yeah,
available.
yeah,
Um,
absolutely.
so we have such a wealth of tools that we're able to use to get to where we need to be. I think it's just a case of prioritizing.
Yeah.
Is this something we really want? Do we really, really want, or do we need to change
Oh,
our
really?
direction? Do we need to renew? And if we do, we can make it happen, even
Yeah.
if it means setting aside 2 hours a day to research and begin to implement something. It just may mean that our road will be a little longer, but it will happen.
Yeah, I agree. I think the important thing is not to write it off as some sort of harebrained scheme or a pipe dream,
Yes.
because if it came to you, it came to you for a reason. It means it's been there in your head for some time, probably, and it's found an out, isn't it? So if it finds its way to the surface, it's worth looking into. And it goes back to what I said earlier about not fearing failure. Because, your point about fear, I think fear comes in when we don't have a belief that it can work and that it's going to fail. And therefore, then it starts to knock your confidence. But I think at this age now, in sort of midlife, we've got so much more going for us. We look at all the different resources, tools, experience that we've got to us around us. I think the highest percentage of entrepreneurial women and successful entrepreneurial women are in their early 50s. And I think that's because you have found that voice, you do have that confidence to a point that you've built up over the years, and you think, I'm just going to take a leap. And if that's a version of a midlife crisis, I'm okay with that. I mean, I think I understand the term midlife crisis because I think, when you think about the different things that you want to do before you think your body's not going to be capable of getting you up the side of that mountain, you understand why people start doing triathlons at 50 and
Yeah.
Ironman challenges because they're like, well, my body might hold me together for another 10 years, but, will I be able to do it 65? So let's do it now. So I do think the midlife crisis is a real thing. I just wonder if it plays out differently.
Yeah, I kind of tend to think of it a little differently. I do think that I understand what you're saying about, will our bodies hold us through for the next X
Yeah.
amount of time? But also we bear in mind that we are a much healthier generation than the
Yeah.
prior. We do live longer than the prior generations. And then I begin to think, well, is it a midlife crisis? Is it a crisis that we want to feel fulfilled and
Mm,
filled with joy?
yeah. Yeah.
So I tend to view it as less of a midlife crisis and more of a midlife rejuvenation.
Yeah. I like,
It's
yeah,
it's
rejuvenation. It's that evolving thing we were talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost like going in and having that half facelift. You just want it to,
Yeah.
it just needs to hit, but not look too weird. This is what we need to do in our lives at this stage is we need
Midlife
that tweak.
rejuvenation.
We
We need
need
that,
that tweak
right.
to give
And I
us
said,
that.
well, I think we need that momentum. You're absolutely right. Because what are we going to do otherwise?
Right.
What are we doing? We're just sitting at home knitting?
Yeah.
You
So, I
know,
mean, I would encourage our listeners, if you're out there and you're thinking kind of, where am I at? What am I doing? Just think about what brings you joy. In this
mm,
day and age, there is so much that we can do and so many avenues to do it. I mean,
yeah.
we've got social media at our feet. There is
Mm,
so many avenues and outlets.
yeah.
You can do whatever it is you want to do. The sky is really the limit, no matter your age.
Midlife rejuvenation and the sky's the limit. I couldn't think of a better way to wrap up this wonderful conversation on second acts and other crises.
Right. So I would just ask for our listeners, you guys, what do you actually want? Not what you'll settle for. My thinking is you already know. Knowing is never the difficult part. Just tell us what it is and let us know what's stopping you. If you're
Yeah.
navigating your own wobbles, we'd like to hear it. Email or DM us and we'll read some out next time.
Wonderful. Well, thank you, Morgan.
Thank you, Sass. It's good as always to see
Lovely
you
chatting with you. Yeah, and I look forward to next week.
next week.
We'll be dropping some little sound bites for what's coming up next week. But looking forward to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah, speak to you soon.
All right, my darling. Love you.
Yep.
Bye.
Love you. Bye.
Well, hello was hosted by Morgan and Sass. Please like, subscribe, rate, and review us. We're available on Apple, Spotify, Amazon, and wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you for listening. We'll see you next time. Remember, the most interesting conversations begin with, well, hello.